Good day, everybody. How are you? So we keep talking about careers, and I thought to myself, "Wow, what a cool career!" I wouldn't say unusual, but in the big scheme of things, not the 9 to 5 job, maybe a little bit different, right? You are a. You tell me exactly what your title is.
I'm a repossessor. So I'm
Repossessor.
technically what they call a legal licensed car thief.
Well, I'm glad you said legal license, right? But
Yeah.
so for those of you who are watching, the gist of this is Madison repossesses cars for those who, correct me if I'm wrong, are behind in the payments of their commitment to the institution, financial institution, several months, right? So it's not this, yeah,
So now they're in repossessions. There's several different categories that they fall into. So you can get repossessed for being, you're obviously going to get repossessed for being late on payments. The bank is going to try and work with you for as long as they can. And if they just feel that they're going to get nowhere with you, they're going to send a repossessor out to come pick up the collateral from you,
yeah.
which is
But
kind of like a wake up call.
yes. All right. So let's talk about that. So, assuming that one is behind the payments, they know they are, they failed to communicate to the bank. But for this conversation, we're talking about careers. So, you, unfortunately, in their eyes, but it's just business, you're doing your job, which I think you've done a good job at before. Um, that you go and you have to remove the car from the property and give it back to the bank or at least away from them. So,
Mhm.
from a job career perspective, what drives you to engage in this activity?
Well, for one, the money is good.
Yeah.
That's one thing I'm not going to complain. We get paid pretty well. Some people say not well enough for what we go through because we do get, shot at. We do have people threaten us. I've been beaten up multiple times. I mean, once I was beaten to where I was in the hospital for 19 days.
Wow.
So, there's a lot of factors that come into play, but I got involved in it because my son at the time, who was 5, told me it was a man's job. And, you don't tell me something like that because I'm going to prove you wrong. And I started working as a repossessor and I loved it. I loved the thrill. I loved loved everything about it. And then eventually started my own business. And I've been in it for so long that people ask me, aren't you tired of it? And then some days I'm like, I am, but I don't know what else to do
Yeah.
because I've done it 22 years.
Yeah. But my take from knowing you a little bit is that at least in the role you are now, you're not the 9 to 5 person.
I'm not a 9 to 5 person. I can set my own schedule. I can set my own days. And the same with my agents, they love this job because for one, they make a lot of money. And two, if they don't want to work tonight, they'll text me and say, hey, I can't work tonight, and I'll fill in for them. Or because we work teams, there's always somebody working, and then I just have to make there's another person filling in with whoever is working. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times, there's a lot of them. It's like, yeah, I'll come in. They don't mind. So I mean, I had on Sunday night, I had 2 agents called me an hour before the shift started and said, hey, I can't come in. And I was like, okay. And I had a family emergency. I couldn't go to work. So we ended up not working Sunday. And it's okay. Life's not going to stand still just because we did not go out,
Right.
So it's, it's a job where it's very flexible for all of them.
Okay. Good. So let's get into the weeds of this job. So
Mm-hmm.
you're contracted with a financial institution to go get a car, probably in the middle of the night. I'm assuming, typically, right?
Um, no, things
No.
have changed.
Okay.
So a lot of the cars we used to back in the day when, we would go at night because people were home. You're not going to go to their house in the middle of the day and they're gone, and then just waste time. So now we basically can go 24/7 because almost 80% of the cars out there have tracking devices in them. The banks have location. The banks know where they are at all times. They'll send us the paperwork with the information and then a link to where we can just click on it and basically see where the car is at
That's
and pick it
crazy.
up. Yeah. So we can
Crazy
work
good
in
for
the
you.
day. So we do have where a car's in the garage all night. So obviously we can't do anything. So we'll just wait till the daytime and go pick him up when he's at work, shopping somewhere else.
Okay.
Life has become in the repo business a lot easier.
A lot easier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about you getting the assignment, as I would say, to go out and get a vehicle. Where, from a career perspective, a job perspective, where does the rush begin, if any? Like you're heading down. We'll just say the middle of the night. I know you just said this doesn't matter, but you're
So,
you're you're headed down that street. Like set the scene for us. Like
so for me, I mean, I've kind of lost the rush or the thrill because it's a job for me at this point. But there is still accounts where, like, I'll get all jittery and shaky, and it all depends on when I look at the paperwork and I've had information from the bank to what kind of account it is. Like they'll call me up and say, heads up, this person called and threatened us, or this person said that if they see a repossessor near the property, they need to make sure there's body bags coming too. But that doesn't stop me from going out there and getting it. That's the ones that makes me, you know, have that rush coming because it's like I need to get in, grab it, and get out before he realizes.
yeah, that
So,
makes
but
sense.
for most part, I make a lot of contact after the fact. With accounts like that, we don't make contact. It's a snatch and go. Now, some police departments in some of these cities will do a civil standby. We'll call them and say, "Hey, we're going to do this repossession." They'll run the name. They obviously will see whatever they see, and then say, "No, when you get there, you call us and we'll have a standby." I had one not too long ago. I had called a police department and I told them, I said, "This is what I'm looking for." And the officer actually drove past the house, called me back and said, "Actually, the vehicle is sitting in front of the residence." And he's like, "When you get here, call dispatch and we'll send a unit out there," which I did. When I showed up, there was 5 units, 2 blocking each end of the street, and one unit waiting. So they opened up, they let us drive, and then the one unit followed us in. We backed into it, pick it up, and he came out, and it was very calm, and he looked at the officers, and the officer said to him, "Well, I've never seen you this calm." He's like, "Yep, nope, I'm not going to fight today." And when we left, I asked the officers, I said, "What's that all about?" He goes, "Oh, no." He goes, "He's on our radar." He goes, "Good thing
Oh,
you." Yeah. He's
well,
like,
that's
"We're
cool.
here." He's like, "We're here 2-3 times a week."
That's cool that the cops
Yeah.
are willing to assist you because
Yeah.
what's really in it for them, I think, I don't know, it's a transaction, I guess. But so I think like there's got to be an element of rush, right? Because it keeps you on your toes.
It does keep you on your toes. You have to be aware of your surroundings at all times. Like, I have this conversation with people all the time. I'll say, every time I let my guard down, it's a disaster. And when I'm all like ready, I'm like, it's gonna be a fight. They'll come out handing us the keys, giving me a hug, being the sweetest people in the world. And I'll get in the truck. I'm like, damn, I got worked up for no reason. And then the ones where I'm like, oh, we're not going to have an issue, it'll turn bad in an instant. I mean, and it like 4 or 5 hours later, we've got cops there, ambulances, it's ugly. People are getting arrested. So I've learned to and I've told my guys too, you have to be on guard at all time. Don't ever think that, oh yeah, because it's a nice neighborhood, or because, it's whatever the demographics of the situation is, you're not going to have a problem. I said, doesn't matter who they are or what social class or how much money they have. If that person is mad, they're going to turn on you instantly.
Yeah, but it should be no surprise, right? But I get that.
Yeah.
But listen, you don't fit the demographic, I don't think, of a repossessor.
Why?
I don't know.
I wear dresses and heels.
I'm speechless. I don't know. You know.
No, I know.
You would be the last person I think if I saw it in the middle of the night that's going to come snatch my car.
I know. I get that a lot. And it's funny. I love the reaction, and especially when they come out and they just stare at me and they go, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Taking your car," and then they'll go back in the house and then my phone will ring and the bank calls me. They go, "Are you repossessing this right now?" I'm like, "Yeah." And they go, "Yeah, we just got a call from the RO saying that he thinks he's getting scammed because there's a supermodel outside trying to take his car." And I'll always laugh and they go, "That's our repossessor. She dresses like that." So
other than the tow truck being on site, I'd be like, what are you doing?
yeah, and we're unmarked. My trucks are unmarked. So a lot of times, like they'll say, "But the trucks are marked." I mean, they'll call the cops on me, and the cops will say, "They'll go, my car's getting somebody's stealing my car," And the
Yeah.
cops will pull up and they go, "She's in a tow truck. You know your payments are behind, right?" And they go, "But there's no name or number on the truck because we don't advertise. All I have to have in the state of California is my RA number on the truck, which I
Yeah.
do." And a lot of times, they don't even see that, and they go, "Well, I thought it was somebody just trying to steal my car." The cops will just always laugh and say, "Man, you knew she was coming. Oh, they were
Yeah.
coming." So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but
All right. So we're talking with the repo queen, Madison, in case everybody's tuning in late. You have a job, a business to go. What's the proper word? I don't even know what the proper word is. Take cars.
yeah, I mean, I recover the vehicles for the finance companies. Now, I'm going back to what I told you. There's several different categories in repossession. So the most common, us going to take the vehicle you haven't paid for or that you're pretty behind on. And then there's the one where you drive, the police pull you over, you don't have a license, it's a DUI, bad registration, and they'll impound it. You don't necessarily have to be behind on payments, but the police department seizes the vehicle on the spot. So then the next day, the bank. So there is a database now where when you get impounded, it gets put inside that database, and then the finance company immediately gets notified. And once the finance company finds out, then they will contact us and have us go pick it up. They'll send us all the documents showing they're the lien holder. A certificate of repossession will go to the tow yard. They'll get a release from the police department, go to the tow yard, pay for it, and then get it out of impound. Then it sits in my yard. So then when you call the bank makes you pay all the fees that I have to front plus the cost for me to pull it out, and then you can come pick it up from me. So that's obviously another whole aspect of it. Then you have your voluntary surrenders where people just decide they don't want the vehicles anymore, and then they're giving it up, and the banks will have us pick it up.
Yeah. All right. So without holding you up too long, from a job perspective, there are a lot of people out there who this is an adrenaline rush for them. They would love to do this, as you know, with your agents. What does one need to do or be aware of? What experience? What credentials, if any? Yeah.
So every state is different. I only can speak for California. In California, you have to work for me. If you come and apply for a job, you have to have a complete clean driving record. You cannot have any felonies, or you can have misdemeanors. There is some felonies that is excusable by the state of California, because in order for me to license you, I have to get you FBI, DOJ, and state cleared. So there's a fingerprint process. You're going to be going through that fingerprint process. 6 weeks later, I'm going to get a letter that says, yes, we're going to issue you a license for him or her, or no. This is what happened. So then I can look at it and say, oh, so when you were 18, you went to jail for, let's say, theft. I can then request a meeting with the state of California and say, okay, well, he's now 40. This happened when he was 18. There's nothing happened in between. He's very good at what he does, and I'd like to give him a chance. And a lot of times the State Department will then then rule on that and say, okay, yeah, we're going to issue him, but he is on a probation period for X amount. The only thing that they will not even consider is if somebody had been arrested for grand theft auto, because they're not going to issue them a license. And I get hundreds of calls from people will go, hey, I'm looking for a job. I've got all the credentials and all the experience. And I'm like, okay. And when they say that, I already know where they're going. I was like, no, what's that? And they go, I just got out of the pen for grand theft auto. And I'm like, buddy, I can't even talk to you. Bye.
Yeah. I get that.
So going back to that, also, a lot of companies do not they train. So me personally, I like to hire people with no prior experience.
Ooh.
Because I don't like hiring somebody else's problems.
Yeah.
So because I work different from other repo companies, we all have different, ways that we work. And I've had guys who will come and work for me from another repo company, and it's very hard getting them to unlearn the things they've learned or the habits they've come accustomed to, and it's like, and they'll say, well, this is how I did it in my job. And I'm like, well, you don't do that here with me. So, I like to have a clean slate and just train them my way. Now, I've had guys that I've trained and then they've left, moved on and gone and worked for somebody else. And the owner of that repo company will call me up and they'll say, man, thank you. And I'm like, what? They go, you know how to train these guys, because I'll tell you what, he's turned out to be one of my best employees. So
yeah, I like it. So in closing, tell us some of the juicy stories. What crazy situations have you been in?
There are so many.
It's like the core of this industry.
Well, I did. You want to hear like a horror story, Repo?
Yeah, PG, of course.
Okay. So we did a repo up in San Mateo a couple of years ago. It's just pre-COVID, and I had my son, who's my lead agent, who works for me. He was with me, and he's worked for me for almost 10 years now. So he knows the ins and outs of this business, back and forth. And we were training a new agent at the time. So after a 17-hour shift, you kind of get tired. You start, like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like you get sloppy. And so because you're tired and you want to go home. So we're on the last
17 hours, yeah.
Yeah, so we're on the last repo and we're coming up. It was up on a hill and the car was parked. And my son backed into it. It was a rear wheel drive Ford C. It was a front wheel drive Ford C-Max, and there wasn't enough room to grab it from the front, and he just picked it up from the back. And instead of putting the straps on and strapping it down so that they could not get it off the truck, he just picked it up in the air. Well, the guy comes running out and he says, "You're not taking that." And I said, "It's repoed. I'm taking it." And he's like, "Well, I want my property out of the vehicle." And I said, "Okay, go give me the keys." And he turned around and walked in the house. And when he came, and I was standing at the driver's side door calling the police, because we have to report every repossession within 1 hour. And I was on the phone with the police, giving them the info. And I hear the new agent who's standing by the driver door, the key doesn't work. And I'm looking at him and I see he's trying to turn the remote on. And all of a sudden I hear, and I realized he had given him the wrong key. And I see the guy open the door. And when he did, I start running for the driver door. He jumped and it started. And as I run up to it, I shove my hand like this through the steering wheel to grab the key out. And he takes off. And my hand is caught in the steering wheel. So I'm running next to the car. And he ripped it completely off my lip. And so I'm running, and I had heels and a dress on, which was the worst. And I'm running next to the car because he was going slow enough at that point. And I realized he was gonna pick up speed. And I turned my hand and grabbed the steering wheel like this, and grabbed the headrest with this arm. And I lifted my legs up and got my knees on the door frame. And as we're going down this hill and he's picking up speed, now I'm hanging outside, basically outside the door. He's got his hand on my face, trying to shove me out of the car. And he can't steer because I've got the steering wheel basically locked. And so when we got to the bottom of the hill, he had to stop because it was a dead end. He could only go left or right, and he had no turning at that point. So he stopped. At that point, my son had caught up with us with the truck, and got in front of him, blocked him, pepper sprayed me and him, and we all got separated. And the guy ran back to his house. Well, we called 911. Half the neighborhood called 911. So the cops came out, and they were like taking reports. And when they went inside the house to go find him, the residents there said they didn't know where he was, but you could smell the pepper spray, throughout the house. Mm-hmm. So the officer put the canine unit, the canine dog up in the attic. And as he got his body pulled up through the attic, he got caught on his body cam, the guy kicking the dog in the head with steel-toe boots. I think they counted 27 kicks from the body cam. He was able to pull the guy up to the door, and then he leaned over and started beating the officer in the head. So the officer, they got him out, so they arrest him, and he got charged with grand theft auto because it wasn't even his car, it was a friend's car. Mm. He got charged with assault on a canine officer, assault on a police officer, attempted murder because he tried to shove me out of the car while moving. He assault with a deadly weapon, leaving the scene of an accident, and resisting arrest. So he had 7 charges against him. Wow. So he goes to jail, and of course COVID hit within a month, and they wouldn't let him out because he was already on probation for something else. So now he's stuck in there. So of course we go through the whole process of COVID. And not too long ago, I had to go to court. They subpoenaed me because I had to go to court to testify. And I showed up there, and the DA comes out and he laughs and he says, "It's okay. Sorry for wasting your time. He took a plea bargain." And I said, "Oh, okay, great." And he's like, "Yep, he took 7 years. He got 7 years with no time credited for the time he's been in." Yeah. And so the DA turned around and he says, "Yep, funny. It wasn't like it was he threw his life away for a Ferrari or a Porsche. It was for a Ford C-Max."
Oh my goodness. How long ago was that?
I think it happened it was like right in the beginning of 2019, right when the first, we shut the country down for was it 2019 we shut down for the first time?
Yeah.
So it happened right before that. And the courts were closed, so they weren't doing anything, and this guy just had to sit. Yeah. He couldn't get bail, nothing, because he was already on a previous case. So so he has to pay restitution to me now, which at the end of the day, right. I get 2 cents a day. Yeah. But yeah, it was funny because the officers told me, I said because they pulled the cameras from all the houses, and the officer goes, "Yeah, the people were going, we weren't sure they were shooting a high-speed action movie down the street because we just saw this lady hanging out." And I was like, "But
I can see that
about adrenaline. That's where it kicked. Like when I ran, it instantly kicked in. I wasn't thinking logically. I just ran and stuck my stupidest thing a person can do." But I did it because at that point, everything was just going inside of me, and I wasn't thinking rational. And that's unfortunately some of the stuff that happens on repossession. Like you see something, you react without thinking, "Oh my God, he can run me over." I've been crushed by a car where they ran me over. I mean, I've had so many things happen to me over 22 years. Like I said, I've been in the hospital for 19 days because of an assault. Damn. I've had a repossession where I get paid $725 for the repossession, but I've got $60,000 in medical bills. I can't go after somebody who already can't make their car payments to pay my bills. Yeah. I get restitution, but when are you going to get that? So
That's tough. That's tough. Are there any
Yeah.
people? Are there many that, on the average, fail in this business? Do you
Sorry,
think?
say that again.
Are there many in this industry that fail? People who are repossessors in terms of business?
Is there a lot of repossessor? Is that what you're
No,
asking?
are there businesses that don't make it in terms
Yes.
of?
So during COVID, so in the Bay Area, so right now in the Bay Area, because I'm in the Bay Area, so in the Bay Area, so and I speak under correction because somebody else just told me this the other day. I don't actually look at, I keep to myself, and I don't, it's like I don't really feed into all the crap within this industry because we are a backstabbing industry. And unfortunately, I hate to say it, but that's how it is. The one repossession company is so afraid, you're going to get more than him. And to me, there's enough work for everybody. There's thousands of banks out there, and I'm one of the people who, if a bank calls me and asks me to do something, I said, unfortunately, I can't. I don't have the time, but let me give you a number to a company that's just as good or probably better than me.
That's
And
cool.
then and they're always like, I'll get a call and they go, wow, did you report us? And I'm like, yeah. And I go, oh, thank you. But that's because that's the type of person I am. You understand? Because to
Yeah.
me, there's enough work for everybody. But somebody told me the other day that out of all the repo companies that there were in the Bay Area, and there was a ton of them, I think at one point there was 30 of us out here. There's only like 7 standing at the point after COVID. A lot of companies closed down because one, they couldn't survive through COVID. They had too much overhead. Some of them just closed down because they're new. They come in and they try to, kill the OGs like me and the ones that is left standing, because they'll come in and call the bank and say, hey, she does it for 725. I'll do it for 300. And then the bank, and it's like, we won't get work because they're doing it for 300. And after 3-4 months, he realized he can't pay his bill with that those rates because we've got insurance, we've got bonds, we've got storage facilities. I mean,
Yeah.
my storage facilities a month cost $15,000.
And I was going to say that those 725 on the front side looks great.
It does, but I've got massive overhead.
Yeah.
My bonds a year is expensive. I'm considered one of the smallest repo companies out here. But so my overhead is not as big. There's companies out here with 60, 100 trucks out here
Wow.
that runs for bigger companies than I do. I have a very select group of finance companies that I work for, and I keep it. I'm not the type of person that wants the whole pie. I just want enough work to pay my bills. I don't need to become a billionaire or even a millionaire, but I want to be comfortable and be able to pay my bills and have my staff be able to make money. So I turn banks away all the time and say, I can't handle the workload because I'm not big enough. Now, there's companies who will take everything and then they can't fulfill the commitment that they tell them they're going to do. And, I think when we had a previous conversation where I told you, I'm a strong believer your name is everything. Once you ruin your name, you can't recover from that. And the last thing I need in this business is for a finance company to say, well, she doesn't, can't do it, or they, like they lie about things, or they say they didn't do it. If I tell you, hey, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And so, and I get a blocks on the banks. And the reason I know how bad it can be here, because I have banks call me daily and they go, hey, can you do this for us? And I'm like, not really. And they go, we'll pay you triple. And I'm like, okay, what's the situation? They go, we had another repo company on this. The repo company lied. They give us fake updates. Can you just handle it for us? Because we actually had somebody drive by and the car's sitting outside the house.
Oh, wow.
I'll go out and I'll go pick it up in the car has a blown transmission, and I'll talk to the registrar. And he goes, yeah, it's been sitting here for 3 months waiting for them to pick it up. So obviously when the bank calls me, I have to relay that information to them. And then the bank they go, yeah, we have problems with this repo company all the time because they try to take on too much. And so they can't get to all the work. And I don't like working like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Are there any parts of the country that for this industry that are better than others?
I don't think so. I mean, I really don't know. I mean, I talk to other company owners that I'm friends with, in like I know some repo companies in Florida, and they'll tell me they're very busy, and then they'll say, like, because we will basically work for the same client, and then they'll say, so I hear you make X and X amount, and I'm like, yeah, and they go, how do you get away with that? And I say, what do you mean? And they go, well, they pay us about $300 less than they pay you, but we're in Florida, the cost is pretty much the same, because California is very cost wise similar to California. And so I'll say, I don't know, because I just tell them that's what you're going to pay me. You don't have to use me. You can use somebody else. And they'll always come back with, yep, we're going to use you because they know I'm going to deliver.
Wow. So I think we tie this all in, though, for what you do and your experience, right? The work ethic, do the right thing, all those things that you would want in the company or an employee, and things speak for themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I tell my employees, because and every employee I've ever had, they know they can come to me and tell me anything. Like I've told them before, I said, honesty is the best policy. I said, if you go out and let's say there was a mishap and you might have hit the guy's bumper or anything, I want to know about it the next morning, because it's better just to call the bank and say, hey, this happened last night and we can repair it or fix it or take care of it, than you standing there and say, I don't know what happened there. I said, because, I said, when you get a bad name out there, again, you cannot recover from that.
Right.
So,
right.
And my employees are very, very honest. And that's the one thing. Like when the banks, literally, I have where the banks will call and say, the customer said he had $10,000 in the car and it's now missing. And they'll start laughing and they go, and I said, really? And what did you say? And she goes, I told them, I said, yeah, no. First of all, if you had $10,000 in the car, your car would be in your driveway. Secondly, we've dealt with this company for 20x years and they've never had anything, taken, because people always want to blame us for everything. They always, you damaged my car, you stole this, because they have to come up with money to get that car back, and they think by blaming us or accusing us, they're going to get it out of us.
Yeah. So. Heck, you sure write a book one day.
I know. Story.
That's good stuff. So in closing, what advice would you give somebody interested in doing this type of work?
Find a company a repossession company who wants to hire, or is looking. That we're always looking for agents. Most companies are always looking for agents. If you can find a company that is willing to train you and you've got all, everything that they need, clean record, like I would do that, apply with them. I mean, I've had an employee where he called me every day for literally 4 months, and every day I tell him the same thing. Yeah, okay, dude, I'll call you when I have an opening. And he told me one day, he's like, I'm gonna keep on annoying you until you give me an interview.
I love it.
Experience. He was an ex-Marine, had no experience. I said, I got irritated. I said, fine, just come to my office. And he showed up. He sat across my desk. I was on the phone. My phone wouldn't stop ringing. He sat there for 2 hours, didn't say a word until the end of the day. When I hung up, I said, okay, what do you want? And he's like, I want a job. He was persistent. And and he had no experience. And I said, all right. I said, you're a Marine, so you got something going for you. I said, I'm going to give you a chance. And I figured I was going to give him, like, I would make his life hell. I make their lives hell in the beginning, because if they're going to stick around, I want them to know anything can happen, and you need to be determined. You need to be very willing to want and want this job badly enough. And, I told him, I said, all right, I'm going to give you a shot at it. I said, because this job is not for everybody. Because I've had people who would go out with me for a day and then they won't even show up the next day. And I'll call and say, hey, are you okay? And they go, yeah, no, that job's not for me. You have to be freaking crazy to want to do that job, And, it's like, and he stuck it out with me, and he ended up becoming one of my best employees.
That's great.
And now he's got his own repo company. He lives in a different part of the country. He called me up and he's like, hey, can you sponsor me? Can you help me? And I absolutely did. I put my name out there because I called the bank and said, I've got somebody that I need for you to get work. I don't do that very often because I don't want them to come back and say, well, you told us this. And, but yeah, if you're willing to do it, Absolutely, it's a very good job.
Mhm.
It's a very lucrative job, and we're always going to have work because people are always going to buy cars. Now, I don't just repossess cars. I repossess hotels, restaurants. I
What?
mean, shopping. I mean, I repossess anything that is on a purchase contract.
Wow, I
I've
didn't know that.
walked into a doctor's office, a dentist's office, and they were in the middle of a workday, and I said, "Everybody, get your purses and get the hell out." And he came out, and I said, "We had trucks there, we had equipment." My guy started taking the bolts out of the chairs,
What?
removing it, and the doctor was like, "What are you doing?" And I said, "We're taking everything except the oxygen and the medicine."
And
And he got on the phone with the bank and came up with the 20,000 he owed him like that, and the bank stopped us,
oh,
and
really?
yeah, and the bank goes bill us, and I billed them for the repo because I get a rate. I don't, so they quote a fee to me. So
Yeah.
they'll, like, for that instance, they said $5,000. Can you go remove the equipment? So I still got paid the 5,000 even though I
Wow.
didn't remove the equipment.
Wow.
So you know, I mean, but he brought that on himself by thinking that he was going to get away with it.
That's
So yeah,
crazy.
anything on a purchase contract can be picked up. I don't do houses, but I mean, I do supermarkets. I walk into a supermarket and I remove their cold cases out. I mean, we've had an instance where we had to literally break the doors frames out of the building to get the refrigerators out.
Now, come on, that's adrenaline.
Yeah,
Definitely.
that is adrenaline for me.
Yeah. I didn't know
So
that. All right, so let's wrap it up, and I won't hold you up. Let's on a entertainment note, let's tell people about your social media platforms, and listen, you tell them where they can find you, and I've watched plenty of videos, and it can be entertaining.
yes, absolutely. So I am known as the Repo Queen on TikTok. And it, you know, I mean, I really just kind of started off doing a couple of repossession videos here, and it kind of blew up. And then I think I made a video where I felt sorry for somebody and I was crying, and it kind of took a different turn on my, you know, on my whole platform. And I realized that the reaction I was getting from the public, that people wanted to know more about how we treat people who are in the situation. And so my platform became more of a, you know, compassion and kindness. I am big on compassion and kindness. Just because I take somebody's car doesn't mean there's a bad person, or, you know, they didn't want to pay.
Yeah.
A lot of, like, the caption on my TikTok says, every repo has a sad story. And every repo does have a sad story, because I don't know what these people are going through when I go and pick up their cars. I don't know if they lost their jobs. I don't know if they got sick. Anything can happen. And I'm not there to judge them. So when people come out and they're crying and they beg us every day, can you just leave it? Well, I can't. That would be illegal, for one. And two, that would also be discrimination, because I can't leave her car but take your car. I would have to leave everybody's car. Plus, how am I going to pay my bills?
Mhm.
So I have to take the car when I'm there. And people will come out crying, begging us, you know, we're taking the cars. And then I have the ones who'll tell me, you must think I'm a piece of shit because I'm taking your car. And I always tell them, I said, no, I don't. I said, I'm not God. I can't judge you. I don't know what happened, why you didn't make the car payment. I said, all I know is that your bank has been reaching out to you. You're ignoring them. And, you know, they always say the same thing. I was embarrassed. I don't know how to tell them I didn't have the money, which is the worst thing you can do, because these banks only want to hear from you. They want communication from you, and then they will give you a chance. But the minute you block them, you don't answer them, or your phone's disconnected, you're going to have somebody like me at your house to pick up, because they don't know what else to do. You know,
True.
they're in an office in another state. They have to send somebody out to go and pick it up. You know, so I tell people, I said, if you had communicated with somebody, with your bank, they would have absolutely worked with you. You know, I'm going to give you a good example. I repoed a guy 2 years ago. A couple of months ago, he calls me up. He had my number still saved in his phone. He got the car back and he says, hey, do you remember me? And I happen to remember him because I actually had a really pleasurable experience dealing with the gentleman.
Mhm.
And he said, is my car up for repo? And I'm like, what? And he's like, do you have a repo order for my car? And I said, no. And I looked, I said, no. And he's like, oh, he's like, because I think my car's up for repo. Now, this particular bank only uses me in this area. And I said, why would you think that? He goes, because I'm really, really behind. So I'm thinking, oh, they're using somebody else. So I get on the phone, call my rep, and I said, can you look up a VIN number for me? And she looks it up and she's like, what's up? I said, is it up for repo? She goes, no. And I said, well, he says he's really far behind. She goes, yeah, he's right. He is really far behind. And I said, well, what's going on with this? She goes, why is he calling you? She goes, I said, he called me because he wanted to know if I had the repossession order for it. She goes, no, he's not up for repo. She goes, Madison, he makes $100 payments every month, even though his car payment is $380. But he's putting the effort forward on making the payments, even though he's getting deeper, further and further in the balance, behind. But he's making an effort. She goes, at this point, we're basically taking an interest payment from him.
Yeah,
we're
right.
covering his interest. She goes, and the loan is just getting longer and longer and longer. And I said, oh, and she goes, but he calls every month. She goes, he sends a payment in every month. She goes, he tells us he's looking for work, whatever is going on, but he's making an effort. So I called him back. I said, well, you're not up for repo. You're getting further behind though. I said, but you're making a payment every month. He goes, yep, best advice I got from the prettiest woman I ever met. Because the day I gave him a car back, I said, whatever you do, if you fall behind, communicate with your bank. And that's the only thing that keeps him from repossession.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what the banks want. They don't want these cars. Mm-hmm. Honestly, they do not want these cars.
Yeah, I'm sure. Well, this is all good stuff. Wow, it's a different industry. I love the 9 to 5 job aspect of it. Yeah, it's good stuff.
And it's fun. We have fun all the time. Like the agents, it's like a comedy show. I told somebody the other day, I said, these agents, my agents all have such amazing personalities, and the way we communicate and talk with one another, it doesn't feel like, oh my God, I got to go to work today. We get up wanting to go to work because we don't know what's going to happen. It's like we can laugh all day, or somebody will be moody, and we'll just kind of keep to ourselves. And it just every day is different. It's not a boring job whatsoever.
It, right? So how many hours a day do you normally put in, or your agents?
So it depends. Most of my agents come normally in at 7:00 at night, and then they'll work because they a lot of them want to work at night because we don't have traffic on the freeway, and it's fast for them to move around, So, and they can get more done because they're not stuck in traffic, because the Bay Area traffic is horrible. A lot of them want to work at night. They come in at 7 and they'll leave when it's done. So we don't have a whole lot, and they're done by 3, or they can get through it quick enough. They'll go home. There's really no set hours. All I ask is that all the assignments get ran, And then, I know last night I didn't work because I had to work today. So the agents who were working last night, I got a text from them at 8 this morning with all the stuff that they had, because they send me pictures of everything they picked up so I can notify the bank. And they came in at 7 and at 8:00. So that for them, that's a 13-hour shift,
Wow.
But, I've worked, and some of them have worked 17, 19-hour shift. We start and we're on a roll. It's just car after car after car. And I'll say, do you want to stop? Should I bring a replacement in? And they go, oh no, well, I'm picking up, because my agents get $100 a car. So for every car they pick up, they're making $100. So if you take it, if he works and he's picking up 10 cars a night, that's $1,000. If he's picking up 15 cars on that shift, that's 15.
You can get 15 cars in a shift.
Oh yeah, I've had an agent who picked up 22 cars on Thanksgiving by himself.
Wow.
Because I normally give them the holidays off because everybody does have families, but this particular agent, he wanted to work holidays, and that's when he makes most of his money. And he tells me, he goes, I'll start, and go through it. And he's like, all these cars are home because we know they're home. He's like, and he goes, it's a job. I just do it.
Wow.
So
that's tough.
Yep.
All right, Madison. I'll let you go though. I don't hold you up. You lot of good stuff. We woo.
Well, it was nice talking to you.
Yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Hey, Repo Queen Madison on TikTok. That's where I've known you from. Where else? What other platforms are you on?
I'm on Instagram, but I post very rarely on there. I mean, TikTok is basically my main platform,
Okay.
and so I've kind of slowed down a little because, as I told you, now I'm in a reality show project, so I'm kind of focusing more on that. Making TikToks for me takes tremendous amount of time.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you. But I'm going to post the
Plus,
TikTok, your TikTok link on the in this video, and hopefully people can get more stuff from you.
thank you. Well, you have a wonderful evening, and it was nice talking to you.
Okay, Madison. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.